Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Garrett Soldano, and I hope you had a fantastic, safe 4th of July, just like we did. So I wanted to get on here today because I told you on our last live a couple of days ago that we are going to be highlighting, Rochester Community Schools and what has been going on over there. I just brought on a young mom who was standing up because they read her 8-year-old daughter a book that she wasn't aware of. And the daughter came home and started asking questions about their little or her little sister being a transgender and wondering if, they would love her more if she was a boy and everything else. So obviously the mom was very upset. And so I put that video and it went viral on all my platforms, rightfully so. When the school systems are trying to hide stuff from parents, I think it's very important to get that out, to let people in that community know. And that is very important for folks to know, because this mom didn't know that I was highlighting this school board over a year. I've been posting videos of Rochester Community Schools and what's been going on with that school board, and the infighting on that school board. There are 2 folks who I believe that are trying to represent the community, but there unfortunately are a majority of people on that school board who have dug their heels in and refused to budge. And you're going to see some of that here today, and you're going to be able to identify what I humbly feel is the problem. And there just needs to be common sense on these school boards. And a lot of these school board members that are on these school boards, they're on it for the wrong reason. They're pushing a political agenda. And I mean, it's obvious, right? Because they always say those keywords like my feelings, I'm offended, I feel threatened, right? So that's what they kind of push out. And you're going to see some interaction because the school board brought in a member of what's called the Michigan Association of School Boards, the MASB. Now, I can only imagine that this little association is probably backed by the teachers' unions. And I'm sure there's representatives all across throughout the state of Michigan in their districts that represent this association. But by listening to this guy, I kind of feel that he's kind of a knockoff Dr. Phil. And so the 2 folks who I support on that school board, not because of what they stand for politically, to be honest with you, I don't know what they stand politically, but I've just been watching them over a year. And these 2, I feel, really have just common sense. And you're going to see those 2 in action today, kind of stand up for what's going on against I'm going to call him the knockoff Dr. Phil. All right. So before we get into the 15 minutes of footage I'm going to cover, then I will continue to post videos all throughout this weekend and next week with the mom, because I really feel it's important for you guys to see this, that your schools may be doing the same thing. This mom wasn't even aware of what was going on. And she's a follower of mine, she said. And she's like, I didn't see any videos of Rochester Community Schools. And that just lets you know that a lot of my information that I put out is getting censored, which that's just part of the game. But I'm going to continue to highlight it because they blocked me on X. I showed that on my last live. I tagged Rochester Community Schools on the video of her standing up, their own video, and they blocked me. So when you block me, that lets me know you have something to hide. So I will highlight you all week. That is for sure. So let's get into another clown show. Karine Jean-Pierre and her trying to defend Biden. It is quite comical to watch her try to defend what's going on. And I can just scratch my head because I can only imagine what she's trying to do up there. But it's interesting that the mainstream media is starting to put pressure on her now because, even though she has been stating that these are cheap fakes, Biden's mentally sharp and everything else, she thinks the American public obviously smokes crack. And the mainstream media is just getting held accountable too, because they've been pushing this garbage too. One of the narratives that I saw this morning, that Biden runs sharp but forgetful. I mean, that's the stuff they put out. Okay. So let's watch Karine Jean-Pierre give us a whole bunch of vomit. That's what I'm calling it. So here we go.
There's no question that international travel can be rigorous. I think the confusion is that he's still suffering from the effects of that nearly 2 weeks later. So can you articulate a little bit about, like, do you guys usually have accommodations for him after he does a trip, that he's going to have jet lag for that long a period of time?
So can you, when you say 2 weeks later, what do you mean?
Well, the debate, he arrives back in the United States 12 or 13 days before the debate. So his explanation for a poor debate performance is jet lag.
So what I want to say is it's the jet lag and also the cold, right? It is the two things, and that occurred. And you all heard it in his voice when he did the debate, right? And it is not even something that we shared ahead of time. You heard it in his voice and we confirmed it. And I think that's important to note as well. Like, it is the jet lag and the cold. But I want to be really clear here. This is not an excuse, right? This is not an excuse. You all asked for an explanation, and we're giving it an explanation. It is not an excuse. I don't want that to be the leading piece of this. The only reason we're sharing this, because it was asked of me here, and the president certainly wanted to give an explanation himself, and that's what he did yesterday. We understand that it wasn't his best night. It wasn't a great debate. We understand that, and we understand what supporters saw, what the American people saw, and what you all saw. And so we wanted to give an explanation.
So an explanation, we're going to just dissect that. I can't help but laugh at it, that, it was a bad night. Now, granted, let's be logical here. Let's use some common sense. So if he was sharp as a tack and everything else that he's been doing leading up to the debate, like these meetings, reading off the teleprompter, not falling down, not wandering around aimlessly, not knowing where he is half the time or 3/4 of the time. If we didn't have all that other footage over the past 6 months at least, consistent footage of, unfortunately, his mental decline. Now, I'm not making fun of his mental decline. I think it's absolutely horrible. We all have had family members that have gone through this. It's absolutely horrible. What's even more horrifying is they're still trying to prop this poor guy who's obviously not there up. And they're kind of like putting him out there as a pawn. That's disgusting, in my humble opinion. But we'll get down that road another time. However, if he was sharp as a tack and we didn't have all that footage, I could say, yeah, it was a bad debate night. Running for governor in the state of Michigan, we had 6 debates, and I think in 2 or 3 months, it was crazy. And out of all those 6 debates, I didn't show up. I was tired. It was the end of the campaign, and I wasn't sharp. I was kind of fumbling over my words, and it was a bad night. It happens. But there wasn't 6 months of footage of Garrett showing signs of mental decline, right? So you can't have that as an explanation. They try, like, it was just a bad night. No, but what's the excuse for all the other things? And then they're saying it was jet lag and a cold. Now, those who are familiar with jet lag, it's real, but you should recover from jet lag, probably 2 days, 5 days at the most, maybe a week, but 12 days, they're saying, like, it was 12 days before the debate. And hey, it was a combination though. It was jet lag and a cold together. That's why the guy couldn't finish a sentence and was saying just the most bizarre things of everything with Medicare and not having any troops down his watch. I mean, we can go on and on, but the point is they're getting revealed now. Not only the Democratic Party they obviously lie. And then the most important thing for most of the people in the middle who have had their head in the sands is then the mainstream media, the CNNs of the world, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, even Fox News sometimes, they run with the lie. And so that's the stuff that you have to understand is what they're willing to do to keep the power. What they're willing to do. They're not only willing to try to prop up and fool the American public, because they obviously think the American public, majority of us, smoke crack, right? But they're propping him up, and then the media is running with the lie, just like they do with the pandemic. And I had this conversation with a moderate the other day. I said, thank goodness gracious that Elon Musk bought Twitter, which is now known as X. Thank God, right? If we weren't able to have that platform to have conversations, they would still be pushing on the narrative. And unfortunately, the majority of people would be tuning in and think that's reality. And it happened during the pandemic when we were standing up against the lockdowns and the mandates and saying, why the hell are we doing all these things? You know, if you spoke up against any of that, you were deplatformed, you were censored, you were, you know, spreading misinformation, you were advocating the spread of disease. That's been proven the fact. I lived through it. I experienced, for those of you who followed me over the past 4 years, you watched me go through it. I've been deplatformed over 11 times now. And TikTok is still, they just kicked me off again, 100,000 followers. They kicked me off because I'm exposing school boards, because you're not allowed to talk about the transgender. You're not allowed to say that women should only have women play sports and not biological men. You're not allowed to say any of that on X, or excuse me, not on X, but on TikTok. You get deplatformed. And so you get taken down for hate, for just having a conversation and saying, you know, I don't agree with it. You get taken down for hate. So it's still happening, but thank goodness that there is a platform now that we can have conversation, and that's X as of right now. Okay. And hopefully that there's other platforms. I hope somebody buys TikTok and allows me to get back on there. I had 3 accounts over there that have been banned. So if you're on commie TikTok, as I call it, you know, you can find me at the Grassroots Army. The Grassroots Army has been taken down. So I switch it just like I did off YouTube. We're on YouTube called the Grassroots Army, because our Grassroots Army channel got taken down when I was exposing the border crisis back a year ago. So I'll continue to do my part, but it just lets you know what the Democrat Party is willing to do. Is they tell a lie, the media runs with a lie, the social media will deplatform anyone who combats their lie, right, with the truth and logic. So that's what we're dealing with. So it's just more about sharing information, having conversation, and continue to go forward. And that's why I think it's very important with our local school boards is to do the same, is to get good representation on there. Now, look, if you're in Rochester Community Schools, you have to run. You got to help these 2 that are on the school board, or they're representing you and your kids and the community, be honest with you. They're really just trying to bring common sense and logic to that school board. And you're going to see the majority right now is they're Democrats. And the funny part is they had 2 people step down. And so what the Democrat majority school board did is they just filled in those 2 seats and didn't have an election. And they called them elected officials, but they're not really elected. They're appointees. So Trustee Weaver has been calling them, they're not trustees, they're appointed, right? And the Democrats get really upset because that's how they've been able to keep power. So they have these people run, and since they have the majority, they step down, they don't run as an election, and then they just fill in their own people and not allow the constituents in that community to vote on who they want. That's a problem, folks. That's a problem. So you have to run. You have to run on that school board in that community if you want change. If not, you're going to get more of the hot garbage that I will continue to expose, not only this week, but the next week, because I'm not going to let up, especially when you block me from trying to expose you. So here we go. Here is a knockoff Dr. Phil that the Michigan Association of School Boards sent in to mediate the school board. So enjoy this as much as I did.
What are we trying to tell you? You get what you get.
I think this is where we as a group really struggle. We struggle here an immense amount.
It's a vicious circle. We got to give respect to get respect, but a lot of us start on the get respect before we give the respect. There's 7 of you who were elected by this community. You were all elected as trustees. Innate, we should be trusted.
Well, no, our board 2 are appointed. They weren't elected.
And that is an example.
That's a fact. If facts are you consider disrespectful, that's again where, yes, we have a hang up. That's where, yeah, 100%. If people find facts that they don't agree with to be disrespectful, then yeah, it's hard to respect that. I mean, we got to be able to state facts.
It's
factually accurate that 2 of our trustees are appointees.
Okay.
They were appointed. They were not elected. So
by
when you say-
elected officials.
When you say
They were
everyone was
appointed.
elected, that's not an accurate statement. So
I'll
I just-
stipulate.
I just have to butt in there. I mean, this is the insanity. So Trustee Weaver, who I don't even know what I think he's an independent, to be honest with you. I feel that most independents are moderate Republicans today, but he's stating the facts, like they're not elected. They were appointed by a Democrat majority school board. And then you can hear the other Democrats on that school board chime in and say, no, we're elected officials. And since we elected them, that means they're also elected officials. That's the insanity that this school board is trying to push out. That's why I'm urging anyone in that community, after watching my live today and the previous one and everything else I'm going to expose about this over the next week, man, you got to run and take some of these people off this school board because they are not representing you and your families in this community.
I'll
Simply
stipulate the
make an act.
fact that there are 2 of us that were appointed. However, and that is a fact, it's a fact. However, the way you use it and titles, words that are capitalized as if they are diminishing certain members of the board, you know, it's very difficult to give respect when you sit next to people that will lobby for you to be off the board. I just really struggle with it, and I think almost all of us on the board have examples of not doing both of those circles. You know, I'll own my piece in it, and I think we could get a lot farther if other people would own their piece and we would actually honestly live into trying to respect each other and trying to give each other respect.
I would just suggest that we should do the best we can to just focus on the issues. Focus on the issues, focus on our students, what can we be doing as a board to advance education? Stop worrying too much about personal relations with each other. It's okay. In all kinds of work environments, people, you know, you have to kind of work with people who you may or may not like. You know, that is just reality. But you can do that by simply focusing on your job and focusing on the issues.
I respect that comment. However,
So I'm going to do this all day. So just by hearing those 3, you're going to hear the other ones chime in. You can see which board members are the ones that have common sense, that are like, hey, we're here to do a job. Let's focus on the students. Let's get the students a better position, right? Let's do what we need to do to move this thing forward with some common logic, and not about my feelings are getting hurt because you're not calling me by my title that I want to be called. And that is, I'm an elected official, and you're not, you're appointed. So that's the insanity. All right. So just as you watch the 15 minutes of footage I'm going to share today, you're going to be able to point out, okay, 2 of these folks, they're good representatives. They truly are. They're just trying to like stand up for the facts. Let's talk about the facts. You know, we're not going to worry about feelings. We're going to respect each other, but don't get offended if I call out your unfactual statements, right? So that's I wanted to point that out before we move on. So here we go.
when you have someone address a member of this board in a derogatory manner, it is hard to work with that individual. Now, there are people sitting at this table that were appointed. They were appointed by people that were elected. So the trust was put in the officials who were sitting here who were elected to the seats to fill vacancies. Now, some at this table may not feel that that is a legitimate way to sit at this table, but by law, that is part of our requirement to fill within 30 days a vacancy. Right. So that is what we do. And so it's derogatory for someone to sit at this table and not address their peer in a way that is respectful and recognizes that they deserve a seat at this table just as much as they do.
I mean, this is just a perfect example of how much time we're spending over an accurate description of two of the people that sit at the table. Again, whether someone wants to deem that derogatory, that just shows, again, how people weaponize this idea of being offended or getting their feelings hurt. Appointee is an accurate title. You don't have to like the title. It's not derogatory.
And you don't have to use it. You use it because it's derogatory on purpose.
No, I use it to make sure that
you should own that. Stand by it. Keep that same energy.
Trustees,
Again,
please.
I mean,
Please
again,
stop.
We want to talk about respect. It's an accurate title. People don't have to like something, but just because you do not like something does not make it disrespectful, does not make it derogatory. That's an opinion, and we really, to Trustee Lakui's point, we need to stay away from all this subjectivity, and that's what this whole, hang on,
But
let me finish. No, let me finish. That's what this whole slide has brought us to, and what you see is when you continue to focus on the subjectivity of respect, you actually, in the business world, sometimes you might have to work with someone that you might not actually respect, but you still can be professional. So really that part, it's really about the actions. Instead, you actually might not have respect for someone you work with. Maybe they've done something where you have lost respect for them, but you might still have to work with that person, and that's called being professional and actually focusing on the issues and those things. Continuing to get into your feelings and taking things personal and That's, again, that just shows a sign of lack of professionalism. And I would much rather focus on professionalism than the subjectivity that we've seen right here at this table, people getting very outraged by the simple, accurate description of appointee.
Okay, but
it's just accurate.
And I think that's an issue we have too, is I think we have a really active community. People have opinions and they hear things, but some people feel like they can come straight to board members and board members will take up certain actions and issues on their behalf. And I think that's a problem we have too.
So I have definitely a different interpretation of that. I think we have, because of our district, how wide it is, there are issues that pop up at multiple buildings. And so as a trustee, when you can see things that are happening at multiple buildings, that tells us we have a district-wide problem. And so that's understanding scope. District-wide problems need to be handled at the district level, which would be the board and the superintendent through policy and procedure. But again, that's having to know the facts. Again, if it's a one-off teacher or one-off parent, absolutely. I don't think that that's actually the emails I see coming through aren't a bunch of trustees trying to solve one-off problems about a student's grade or a student got disciplined or my kid got this or my kid got that. I'm not seeing that. I think we're seeing systemic issues across multiple buildings. And at that point, that is something, and again, that's the one that happened this weekend. It was escalated to Mr. Russo because, again, there has been a systemic history of this problem at multiple buildings. That's a district problem that needs to be solved at the district level. Pushing that back onto a teacher or a building, that's the inappropriate chain of command because the facts don't support that it's one building or one teacher where the problem exists. It exists across multiple. That means it needs to be handled at the district level. So
When we're using the chain of command, the follow-up that I didn't get to yet is we should always close the loop with the superintendent. Say, hey, I had a parent approach me about this, because you may hear it from a couple, and then you might hear it from some different people, and then you hear it from some, and so he's got 3 independent sources saying, hey, I'm hearing this. He can respond to it. It's not ours to go out and research it and figure out where that is, or to go to the superintendent and say, you need to fix this. They need to take it to the superintendent or the building administrator or the central office or whoever that common denominator is for that item. That's needs where it's go. Superintendent's not our first call for community and staff.
We just disagree.
Trustee Alspa.
I would just say that if you are hearing things that are happening across multiple buildings, if we assume it's already past the teacher, it's already past the principal, between the principal, the next step is not the board and the superintendent. There are some district level people that can handle things like that, like everybody at central office. So if we follow the chain of command, it's not principal superintendent or principal board. There are other people in there. There are people that supervise principals. We have curriculum directors. So I think it still could be addressed on a district level. I do think it's important for you to loop in the superintendent for him to be aware. But the chain of command does not go principal, Board of Ed.
Go ahead.
It just depends on what we're talking about. Often we've got this chain of command that works a lot of the time for many issues, especially if this is just, a one-off thing going on with someone and their child. Usually the teacher would always be the first place you would go. But it depends. If it's a policy issue or something, that would be handled differently. So it always just depends on what we're talking about. And community members, honestly, should always be free to talk to board members about whatever they want, because we are elected representatives of the people.
Did you hear me say they can't talk to you?
Excuse me.
No, I want to clear that up. I didn't say they can't talk to you. I said set the expectation of that discussion as it starts so that they're not thinking you're running with it and you're not.
Like I said, we can listen to the views of any community member that wants to come and share their views with us. And then we can direct them on the appropriate place to go, depending on what it is that we're talking about.
And that's exactly what I said.
Great.
Be honest. We just need honesty.
Honesty, okay. Well, here's some, go ahead. Sorry.
If we all really did this, which is the catch, right? If we agreed to give our opinion on something and not to reference each other ever in our comments or for a period of time.
Okay. These are some board norms.
But hang on, so in those cases, but appointee Blake, in times when we have to correct somebody when you said something that's untrue, you're saying that you wouldn't point out who you're correcting? I mean, that seems kind of counterproductive when you actually are correcting untruths, which happened quite a bit at our table.
You don't necessarily, If you're following, if she says something and I'm responding to her and I look to her, I don't have to say, well, Trustee Lakui she's just totally wrong. She's so stupid. She doesn't know this. She doesn't know
But hang
that.
on,
I
that's
mean,
where
I
you
would
went way
never-
off into the, she's so stupid, that's the problem.
But I would never say that,
That's-
but that is an example of how
But
we do
again, that's where our
sometimes.
conversations break down, is people go the direction you just described. So again, typically when someone's correcting misinformation, I think that's, again, we're getting caught up on, just because you address the person of who is putting out the misinformation, it's that the misinformation is the problem. So we got to get back to, how about we just stop putting out misinformation and stop being dishonest?
But your honesty is not everybody's
No,
honesty.
honesty
Your
is
honesty
honesty.
is your opinion.
No,
Your
no, honesty is honesty. And again, we've proven that many times of misrepresenting what is said, and that is the corrections that happen at our table and what gets into the back and forth. I mean, it's even kind of happening right now.
So
I'm
here's-
saying,
here's
just
what-
be honest.
here's what
and
I
you're
mean.
saying,
So
no, no,
we're
it's
not all gonna
your
agree to
honesty
that.
isn't honesty. When it's like, well, no, I'm just saying, just be honest.
Let him finish.
Some things are honesty, but some things are matters of opinion, and we express opinions. But some people think every opinion they have is a fact, and there is a difference
So
between a
you're
fact
now,
and an
right now,
opinion.
you're misrepresenting what I said. When someone,
I didn't
someone
reference you.
says out, when someone puts out a statement and then someone corrects them immediately after. So that was the specific example I was giving, is someone puts out something and then another person then corrects the misinformation. I don't think it's that big of a deal if to say, I'm correcting this misinformation put out by X person. The problem is the misinformation. You're going into saying, well, I don't agree that it was misinformation, but if the person can specifically state why it was misinformation, that, again, that is not an opinion. You are going down the side road of wanting to turn it into always this attacking the motives, that the person isn't being truthful, or they aren't doing this, or they aren't doing that. I'm simply stating, when someone puts out a statement that needs to be corrected, that I don't think it's a big deal if they state the name of who they are correcting.
Well, there's a way that you can say it that's productive and that is not insulting, and there's a way that you can say it that is insulting. And if we want to keep the way we're going, we'll keep saying it the way that's insulting.
Or how about we just stop spreading misinformation? Don't say the dishonest things, and then you won't have to be corrected.
Let's go back to my first line. Let's assume positive intent. So we need to think about presume positive intent. What's the intent of the response or the original question or the original comment? We have to presume positive.
Oh, man. How many people out there right now want a Trustee Weaver on their school board? See, if you've been following me, they tried to censor him for speaking up. This guy has been just attacked nonstop. That's why he ran for school board. He didn't want to run for school board. He ran because there was a need. And obviously, after watching that clown show of a school board right now, you can see why he ran and why he gets attacked, because he's just standing up for truth. He's standing up for facts. And you see how they tried to manipulate that? Well, that's not my truth. That's your truth. I hate that comment. So you can probably tell me you're a liberal without telling me a liberal when they start saying that hot garbage, that vomit that comes out of their mouth. Well, that's not my truth. Hey, look, gravity's gravity. If you tell me that gravity doesn't exist, I'm going to push you off a 12-story building. And then when I come down and mop you up, you're probably going to understand that truth wasn't just my truth. That truth was reality. And so whenever you hear someone, well, that's just not my truth. Tell me you're a liberal without telling me a liberal. And that's why it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, you have to run for these types of offices, because you get people on there, Trustee Weaver and Trustee Lakui, that are just trying to hold the line for all of you. And they just nonstop. I've watched hours upon hours of this school board. It's probably one of the top 5 pretty bad school boards in the country. And that's why I highlight it, in my humble opinion, just because of what you witnessed right there is just, oh, my feelings are getting hurt. Hey, you know what? Why don't you put your feelings to the side, start stating facts, and actually do what you are supposed to be doing, is representing all students, not just your small echo chamber in your political beliefs. Okay. And so that's why if you're in that community, Rochester Community School District, or any other community, run for school board, because you are needed. And when you get into that situation, be like Trustee Weaver, hold to your gun, speak common sense, do not take it. If you see something that's happening, you don't agree with it, is your job to speak up. And the parents who elected you to be there want just that. And then courage is contagious. And so I will highlight Rochester over the next week and a half because they blocked me. And when you block me, you have something to hide. So I will expose it. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys that information today. Keep asking the right questions, demanding the right answers, keep having conversations with people, and always, always stand up for what you believe in. Until next time, God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan, of course, and always, God bless the United States. Talk to you soon.